Fondazione Prada's landscape project was born in 2014 out of Miuccia Prada's reflections on urban greenery and the relationship the foundation should have with the surrounding city context. The observation of the contemporary landscape and the constant evolution of Milan and its suburbs have given rise to a reflection on the places of urban memory and the possibility of preserving them, but choosing a new approach. Today, Fondazione Prada's green landscape is made up of plants typical of 20th century industrial settlements and wild flora. It is an attempt to return architecture to nature, whether spontaneous or agricultural, in an unconventional way. The project combines two complementary aspects. On the one hand, the flora historically present in industrial archaeology. On the other, the wild species that grow in the abandoned urban areas. It is a landscape born of a double vision, in which past and present, cultivated and uncultivated, natural and artificial, coexist within the spaces of Fondazione Prada. Historical research has made it possible to identify the plant species that characterized the industrial areas and the rural landscapes between the late 19th and first half of the 20th centuries. Knowing the trees, their uses, and their typical arrangement was essential for choosing the plants and finding the right location for them on the Fondazione's grounds. 8 mulberry trees, Morris alba, aligned in rows. 2 fig trees, Ficus carica, grouped together. And 1 lone lime tree, Tilia cordata. Historically used to adorn industrial architecture in Lombardy, these trees stand in the Fondazione's courtyards as if they had always been there. Over the years, the landscape of many metropolitan cities like Milan has seen the abandonment of industrial areas and the inevitable return of wilderness in their disused spaces, the wastelands and railway yards that were once close to factories. The second element of Fondazione Prada's landscape project focuses on this process. The vagabond species reclaim their space on the roof of the cinema and in the car park. The flora reappropriates the architecture, just as it does in abandoned industrial areas, invaded by lush, impervious weeds. The intention is to create a structure of plants that penetrates the urban fabric, creating a new concept of metropolitan greenery. Endemic species that follow their own life cycles without being forced, supporting the return to wild nature. The buildings that house Fondazione Prada's Milan premises were once the Società Italiana Spiriti, a distillery built in the early 20th century. The warehouses, workshops, and silos, now converted into exhibition spaces, date from that period. Since 2015, 3 new buildings have been added to the existing ones. The Podium, a space dedicated to temporary exhibitions. The Cinema, a multimedia auditorium with movable walls. And the Torre, a tall white concrete building. Old and new, horizontal and vertical, open and closed. These contrasts illustrate the plurality inherent to Fondazione Prada's identity. The lime tree, Tilia cordata, which stands alone behind the Sud Gallery, is in the center of the large courtyard between the Podium and the Cinema. It is 50 years old and approximately 15 meters tall, with a crown measuring 8 meters across. while its foliage changes from bright green in spring to yellow in autumn. The lime is a broad-leaved tree that is widespread from Europe to Siberia. In Italy, it is typical of the northern regions. It was the most widely used species in workers' villages and factories at the beginning of the last century. Today it is often found in tree-lined avenues and city parks. Due to their grandeur, the rows of lime trees planted in the last century have now become veritable works of vegetal architecture. 2 fig trees have been planted near the cisterna, about 4 meters apart, so that over time they can merge to form a single crown. One of the 2 plants was already present in the courtyard of the former distillery. This specimen is about 5 meters high and 3 meters in diameter. The second fig tree is very similar in size but has a distinctive feature. Its wind-blown crown faces east, as though the building had prevented it from growing on the other side. It is about 40 years old. Ficus carica is a broad-leaved tree native to southwestern Asia, which subsequently spread throughout the Mediterranean basin. It is an ancient plant, among the first cultivated by humans, that grows throughout Italy. In pictures of historical industrial buildings, the fig is often found in gardens and courtyards, where it probably rooted spontaneously and was almost left in place. The 8 mulberry trees, Morris nigra, follow the east-west path that links Fondazione Prada's entrance to the Torre. They are about 100 years old, 5 meters tall, and were planted 5 meters apart. Originally from northern China, the white mulberry reached the west along the Silk Road in the 12th century. Ludovico Sforza, the regent of the Grand Duchy of Milan from 1480 to 1494, boosted the expansion of mulberry culture throughout his territory. The mulberry tree was known as the wisest of trees. If allowed to bear fruit, the tree produced very sweet edible berries. Leonardo da Vinci celebrated it in the Sala dell'Arsa of the Castello Sforzesco. The mulberry, emblem of the city of Milan, marked the property lines between fields. Its leaves were used to feed silkworms. Silk production was a mainstay of Lombardy's economy until the end of the 19th century, and mulberry culture played a primary role in the development of the textile sector. The site where the Fondazione now stands was once an agricultural area on the edge of the city. The row of mulberry trees thus has the task of symbolically recounting the local history. In winter, the trees are still pruned in the traditional willow head style, respecting and preserving the memory of Lombardy's agricultural tradition. The row of mulberry trees stretches from the entrance to the distillery towards the new Torre building. Following the path that runs parallel to the tracks of the nearby railway yard, these trees symbolically connect the old with the new. The Porta Romana railway yard covers an area of 190,000 square meters. This partly disused area has been characterized for many years by the growth of spontaneous vegetation. Milan's railway yards are home to approximately 368 plant species, corresponding to 80% of the species present in the entire municipality. The flora of these areas is the same or very similar throughout Europe, as the seeds of the plants that constitute it are transported by trains along the main railway lines. The Porta Romana railway yard is currently the focus of an urban regeneration project. The development envisages a large park covering about 100,000 square meters, surrounded by newly built residences, offices, social housing, student accommodation, and services connected to the nearby railway and underground stations. The Olympic Village will be developed in the railway yard on the occasion of Milano Cortina 2026 Olympic Winter Games. Inside the foundation there is still a trace of the spontaneous wasteland vegetation that for many years distinguished the area, which is now undergoing a complete transformation. The roof of Fondazione Prada's cinema hosts a garden characterized by an artificial wild area. This choice is an intellectual challenge in respect to the more radical positions of deep ecology, which considers cultivation an anthropocentric intrusion. A total of 1,800 shrubs, herbaceous perennials, and grasses, most of them belonging to the spontaneous flora of Lombardy, were sown and allowed to grow. Vagabond species then colonized the roof of the building, mingling with these plants and preserving the principles of biodiversity, just as they used to do in the abandoned spaces of the railway yard. Commencing with the existing weeds, the designed wild area nevertheless adds some surprising botanical elements that reveal its artificial nature, with the purpose of establishing a visual continuum between the building and the surrounding urban landscape. The same principle was also followed in the green spaces of the Fondazione Prada's car park. Only an attentive eye would notice that this green space was anything but spontaneous. Over time, the progressive wilding of the flower beds has completed the desired effect to make this area look like an urban wasteland. Fondazione Prada's landscape project fluctuates between planned and spontaneous greenery, between conservation and innovation, in an exercise in constant cross-referencing between the area's industrial history and a profound process of urban reconversion that is still underway.